Welcome back to QuiltAddictsAnonymous.com. This is our second to last video in the How to Make a T-Shirt Quilt series. Today we are actually going to be quilting the quilt, so I'm going to show you how to do that here. I've got the quilt laid out on my dining room table, and you want to roll it up from the corner. And try to keep it as tight as you can because you're going to need to fit this roll underneath the arm of your sewing machine. So you're going to roll it up until you hit the center corner. So you can see at the edge here, I've hit my corner. So what I would do is we have our lines that we've marked last time, and you're just going to start quilting from the corner, from one corner of the quilt, all the way down until you get to the other end, following the lines that we marked in the last video. That would be kind of boring, so what we're going to do here is just quilt one of the edge lines. But if you're doing this at home, start with the center, work all the way out, and then roll it back up to the center and go to the other side, and then repeat with the lines going in the opposite direction. Because you always want to quilt from the center out, because sometimes your fabric and your batting and everything can get bunched up a little bit as you're quilting, and this helps prevent having a big glob of mess in the middle of your quilt if you were to start from the outside and work in. Now we're going to go over the actual quilting part of it. And before we start quilting, there's a few things you have to do to your machine. First, if you have an extension table, get it out and use it. It'll make the quilting process a lot easier. We also absolutely have to use a walking foot. A walking foot, if you've never used one before, it has a feed dog on top, and in addition to obviously your feed dogs that are in the machine. And this helps move all the layers of your quilt at the same time and makes it so much easier to quilt. Don't quilt without one of these. And in the bobbin, I have thread to match the yellow backing. And for the top of the quilt, I use Sulky Invisible Thread. And I've tried other brands of invisible thread, and I really like this one because it's made out of polyester, not nylon, which means it doesn't feel like fishing line, and it lays a little bit nicer on your quilt. But it is still, even though it's polyester, it's different than regular thread, and it needs a little bit of time to relax. So what I do is I just put it in a little glass off to the side of my machine instead of putting it on the spool, and then I thread my machine like normal from then on out. Although it doesn't seem to like my automatic threader, so usually I have to do that by hand. So that loses one little convenience there. So let's get this thread in, and then we can start quilting. One other thing that is very, very helpful is using Machiner's quilting gloves. You can buy these online, and sometimes you can find them in your local quilt shop as well. They're really nice because they have little grips on the edge and help you get a better hold of your quilt, but they're also very lightweight and breathable, so you're not going to get all hot, especially in the middle of summer if you're quilting. So what you're going to do is you're going to keep your quilt nice and rolled tightly. And we're just going to do a short line here for the sake of the video. But again, start in the center, work all the way out, then we'll go back to the center, work all the way to the side, and then repeat going the opposite direction. But you kind of have to maneuver a little bit when you're getting the quilt where you want it to go. So right now I'm arranging the quilt so that the needle line is in line with the line that I marked. And now I'm going to get as much weight of the quilt as I can on the table. If you have a dining room table or kitchen table that you can do this on, take advantage of it, because the more weight you can get off of the floor and onto a table, the easier time you're going to have quilting. Okay. So now I just quilt using a regular stitch. And I'm following those lines that we marked in the previous video with the chalk. And as I'm moving this through, I'm only sewing as much as I can reach. And I like to sort of get my hands to pull that fabric tight to keep it nice and so it doesn't burst up on me as I'm quilting. So I really only sew from, like, we mark squares of cross hatching on here. I really only sew through one of those squares at a time. And then stop. Don't reposition with the needle still going. You will make a mess, and it will not be pretty. And you're just going to keep doing this until you get to the other end of the quilt, which we are almost there on this one. Feels like I've got a little bit of batting underneath there, so I'm going to move that over. And because we're going to be quilting right off the edge, you don't need to do anything special to your thread. You can just clip it and let it go. And so now the next thing I would do, I would pull this out. I usually stand up for this. It's just a little easier to work it. Unroll this part a little bit so you can get to your next line and then repeat. And just keep doing that. And once you've sewn all of your lines, you can take out the pins, and then we're ready for binding. So we have one video left, and then you will have a completed t-shirt quilt. So thanks for joining us at QuiltAddictsAnonymous.com.